Hello, I'm Kirsty Young, and this is a podcast from the Desert Island Discs archive. For rights reasons, we've had to shorten the music. The programme was originally broadcast in 1987, and the presenter was Michael Parkinson.
Our castaway described himself in the Who's Who of the theatre as being formally in business. We shall discover what that means in a moment. What we do know about him is that for 50 years he's played everything from comedy to tragedy with a rare distinction. He's one of our greatest actors, but more than that, in my view at least, he's a national institution. Here's Sir Michael Hordern. Do you like the thought of being a national institution?
National institution, like an ancient monument to me and Cleopatra's Needle.
I think you are, actually. This formally in business quote in the
Yes.
Who's Who of the Theatre, well, what exactly does that mean, formally in business?
Well, I was in a firm in London called the Educational Supply Association for some, I think, 4 or 5 years. Immediately before, I crept in through the stage door.
And that's 50 years ago, because you're about to celebrate your 50th
Yes.
year, so you obviously made the right choice. And
Yes.
You've rarely been out of work for those 50 years. And it's got you to this desert island. Are you looking forward to it?
I'm not really, I don't think, looking forward to it, but I wouldn't be too bad on it, because I'm not a townsman, and I think I could find my way about a bit.
And what about music? I mean, would music be a great comfort and solace to you on this island?
Yes.
You've always enjoyed music?
I've always enjoyed music enormously, and very much regretted that I never learnt it, that I never played an instrument.
Let's have an indication of the kind of music you like. What would be the first choice of record?
Well, my first choice is a record that I met immediately after the war, but right at the beginning of my theatrical career, when I played in the Fairy Queen at Covent Garden, and I met Constant Lambert, who was conducting. And I would like to hear some of his Rio Grande.
Part of Constant Lambert's The Rio Grande performance conducted by Andre Previn. So, Michael, what kind of a background did you come from? Was there any sort of theatre in the family at all?
No theatre in the family at all. There's been a lot of the church in my family, not my immediate family. My father, in fact, was in the Indian Navy, but I have an uncle or two and cousins who were in the church, and looking through the family history goes back through several generations.
Was there any likelihood that you might have followed in their footsteps?
No, I don't think ever. No, only insofar as the church and the stage are akin, as we all know.
Yes, they're acting, I suppose, from the pulpit as
Yes.
well as the stage. Yes, there is a kind of affinity there. So what was the childhood ambition then?
I never really had any ambition. I've always enjoyed acting ever since I was a child. And when I was formally in business, as you just said, I used to do a lot of amateur acting. But it was never my ambition to become an actor professionally. I never thought about it.
Well, then what were you heading for? I mean,
I was heading for staying in this firm and selling exercise books, I suppose, for the rest of my mortal life. But I realised that I was giving an awful lot of time to my acting and had to make up my mind sooner or later, and sooner the better, which I was going to do.
Now, this time, then, when you were in business and selling these books, what kind of acting were you engaged in? Was it an amateur dramatic society,
Yes.
was it?
Yes, it was a dramatic society, or one of the things I did, the main thing I did, called the St. Pancras People's Theatre, which sounds, like that rather. But it was a wonderful outfit in a disused Wesleyan chapel in St. Pancras. It was bombed in the war. run by a splendid sort of amateur Lillian Bayliss called Edith Neville. And she ruled us all with a rod of iron. It was a sort of amateur weekly repertory.
And what sort of parts were you playing in those days?
Oh, all sorts. One of the Ugly Sisters in pantomime. Oh, I was playing sort of leading young men, you see, in those days.
What was the lure of acting to you? Because, I mean, you're not you don't have a sort of flippity-gibbet mind. I mean, you're not taken in by thoughts of glamour and things like that.
No.
What was it about acting?
I don't know. I suppose it's dressing up. Ever since one was a child, I'm still doing it. I think that's what it is, really.
And being paid for it as well.
And being paid for it as well, yes.
Second choice of record, Sir Michael, please.
The second choice is I must have some Beethoven, really, to think about things. And this will be the Ninth Symphony. And I'd like to hear some of the slow movement.
That was part of the slow movement from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Leopold Stokowski. So, Michael, how did you make the break then from St Pancras People's Theatre into the professional stage? What happened?
Well, I went to the managing director of the firm that I was working with, and I said, I don't think I'm giving you the best of my time and trouble and work because I'm doing too much of this acting lark. And he said, have you got a job to go to? And I said, no, I haven't, but I thought I ought to tell you. And he said, well, you can stay with us until you get a job in the theatre, and you can leave us at short notice. And that's exactly what happened. I got a job as tea boy and understudy and heaven knows what, to play at the Savoy Theatre. And I left the Educational Supply Association on Saturday, and I was there at the first rehearsal on Monday morning.
It was actually a very courageous move when you think back on it.
Well, it would have been courageous if I'd had any responsibilities, you know, but yes. I hadn't. I was all on my own. I had no wives or children.
Yes. But that was 50 years ago, and the rest of that is history, so which we'll talk about in a moment. And in fact, the extraordinary thing about that 50 years is that, I mean, you've literally not stopped working in that 50 years. Apart from one 5-year gap when you went in the Navy during the war, you were rudely interrupted by World War II.
Yes.
In fact, you saw active service, didn't you?
I did indeed, yes. I was at sea for most of the war, really.
Mm-hmm. And when you came out of the services at the end of the war, did you have difficulty readjusting?
No.
You didn't?
I didn't. I was frightened, to start with, but I was very lucky because during the 2 years before the war, I'd been in weekly rep at Bristol, for which I have a tremendous regard and gratitude. And during that time, they used to use us at the BBC in Bristol, West Region, as it was called then. And so we did quite a bit of broadcasting there. So I was all ready for that when the war ended. And my last year in the Navy, I was in the Admiralty, sitting behind a desk. And I used to come up here to Broadcasting House every now and then on my evenings off, so to speak, and do little jobs. So that when I finally got my bowler hat, I was able to slip into radio, and I did a great deal of sound radio in the next 2 years.
Another choice of records, Sir Michael, please.
Well, I should like to hear Rule Britannia. When I was in Illustrious, we were refitting in Durban, and there was a wonderful woman who used to sing off the end of the jetty, the breakwater, to the ships as they went out to sea. And she stood there in this white flowing garment singing Rule Britannia, and the Illustrious with all the crew, you know, dressed over, well, not dressed overall, but all the crew on deck and everything, ploughing out to sea past this. It was a wonderful moment.
Thomas Arne's Rule Britannia, sung by Anne Collins with the Royal Liverpool Choir and Orchestra, conducted by Sir Charles Groves. So, Michael, you mentioned the point of arrival at the BBC shortly after the war, and this was really one of the golden episodes in the BBC's life, wasn't it, in the radio, because it had an extraordinary accumulation of talent here in the Broadcasting House. Just tell me some of the people that you were working with.
Oh, well, Lawrence Gilliam, who was head of features, collected round him wonderful people. Louis MacNeice, I remember as well as any of the people. Dylan Thomas.
What were you doing yourself mainly in those days? Were you working for the portrait department or what?
No, I was just doing anything that came, absolutely. Yeah. Plays, a lot of features.
Yes. And what about, at the same time, the stage? At this point, was there a turning point in your career?
Well, not for 2 or 3 years, but then I had a wonderful break. I was asked, heaven knows why, to play Ivanov in Chekhov's play of that name, which is the first time it had been done in this country for 21 years or 25 years or something, at the Arts Theatre. And I played it with, I have to say, some success, and it was seen by quite a lot of people. Amongst them, Glenn Byam Shaw, who was about to become co-director at the Stratford-on-Avon Shakespeare Company. And out of the blue, he took an enormous risk and gave me 4 absolutely wonderful parts to play. And I thought, well, your blood be on your own head, I'll have a go. And I really knew nothing about Shakespeare. Mm. And I had a wonderful season, actually, at Stratford. That, again, was fairly successful. And I think that was one of the big turning points.
Was it about this time that you played Macbeth for the first time?
No, I played Macbeth some years later.
Some years later.
At the Old Vic, yes.
But
I tried to play
what do you
Macbeth.
remember of that? Because that was quite controversial.
It was, as you might say, controversial. I did get some rather bad notices. I got some rather good notices too. But I cherish the worst notice, I think, that I've ever had. Mr. Michael Hordern reminded us of nothing so much as an Armenian carpet seller who wouldn't have been allowed in through the back portcullis of Dunsinane. And to read that the next morning after you've given your all for Macbeth.
But I mean,
shattering.
Yes, absolutely. I should imagine so. So you're not of the persuasion, as some actors are, that they never read the notices.
No, absolutely not. I think it's very presumptuous of my fellow artistes to say that they never read notices.
Why?
Well, A, I don't believe them, and,
Nor do I.
and B, I think it's very presumptuous of them to say that,
yes.
Because a great many critics know a great deal about the theatre, and you can learn a great deal. I mean, you can sift out the purely personal insults, like the Armenian carpet seller, but you can learn a tremendous amount, and I would never say that I had altered a performance because of notices, but I've certainly adjusted performances.
Really?
Oh, yes, indeed. I've said, yes, he's got something there. I'll try.
Another choice of record, please, Michael.
Well, this comes from that same time after the war. Another person that one used to meet having a lunchtime drink in the George was Constant Lambert. And he conducted a performance of Purcell's Fairy Queen at Covent Garden, in which I played Bottom. And he even wrote me a tiny little song to sing, because Purcell didn't do that. So I danced and sang at Covent Garden in The Fairy Queen. So I should like to hear that, and I think it's the closing moments of The Fairy Queen.
You obviously enjoyed that, Sir Michael. You look of rapture.
I loved it. It was well known in my family. I sang it in my bath day after day after day, and my daughter, who was a very small child, then learnt it. She used to sing it too.
Well, that performance was, in fact, by the Ambrosian Singers and the English Chamber Orchestra, conducted by Benjamin Britten. Let's now talk about another significant period in your life, the period when you joined the Old Vic.
Yes.
We're now talking about, when would that be, in the 50s?
Oh, heavens. Yes, I believe
you have
so.
difficulty remembering doing the dates.
I can never remember
Let me tell you,
dates.
it was. But it was also a time when you met, and for the first time, a young actor called Richard Burton.
Yes, indeed.
And, of course, in those days, the extraordinary thing about, because I remember it, too, being a fan myself, was that, I mean, Burton was like a rock star, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Did you envy that kind
Yes,
of...
I did envy him a bit, and there was a sort of love-hate relationship, because I thought during that season that I did all the hard work and he got all the kudos. And I used to come out of the Old Vic after having sweated my guts out playing King John, or I played some very big parts. And the crowd would be right across the Waterloo Road, which was slightly narrower in those days, but it was a big wide road right across to the pub the other side. And I would shoulder my way through this crowd, absolutely unnoticed for all the work I'd done in the last 3 hours. And then Richard would come out, you see, and bang.
Yes. What was his appeal, do you think, Sir Michael?
Well, it's basically, I suppose, it's sex appeal. And a wonderful presence, I mean, he walked onto a stage and you just knew you had to look and listen.
Sir Michael, another choice of record, please.
Yes, well, I'd like to hear Burton's wonderful voice, and what better than a piece of soliloquy from Hamlet, in which, incidentally, not in the production you're going to listen to now, but in which I played Polonius at the Old Vic when he played Hamlet.
Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Oh, that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Oh, God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fie, Pont, oh, fie! 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. That it should come to this, but 2 months dead. Nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king, that was to this Hyperion to a satyr. So loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth must I remember why she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, and yet within a month. Let me not think on't. Frailty, thy name is woman.
You were nodding in approval, Sir Michael.
Yes, there's a lesson in speaking.
It's a wonderful voice, isn't it? The
Wonderful,
voice of Richard
yeah.
Burton, yes, extraordinary. Talking about careers, I mean, you've done everything in your career. It seems to me that you really have covered the waterfront of your particular career. Has that been a deliberate policy on your part?
Absolutely not. I've never had any policy. I've never had any ambition.
Really?
Not at all. Just take what comes and turn it down if I didn't like it, but just hoping that the next job will be as interesting as the one that I'm doing.
See, I read somewhere, Sir Michael, I think, that you turned down the part of Doctor Who, didn't you?
Yes, I did. When William Hartnell, who originally played Doctor Who, left the series, or died, I think, I was asked to take the part on, and I refused.
Why was that?
Well, because I didn't want to be typed. I've never wanted to be typed, and I think in a series like that, once you become so identified with a character, your own character goes, and people can't believe that you can play other parts.
Yes.
And the same happened with Maigret, where I can't say that I was offered the part of Maigret, but I was certainly asked to do the pilot for the series and didn't. And of course, Rupert Davis played it, and it killed him, just about literally.
Yes. So of all the range of your craft that you've done, which has been your favourite? I mean, which do you enjoy doing most of all?
Oh, the theatre.
Do you?
Oh, yes, the theatre. First love's last love. I don't enjoy the thought of long runs in the West End.
Why?
Well, doing the same thing 8 times a week doesn't appeal to me very much. And as I get older, I would be terrified of getting stuck in that. I've enjoyed very much playing with the big companies, just one nice play like The Rivals or Tom Stoppard's Jumpers or something like that. But that's not every night, you see.
What about the kind of plays then? What would you be... The theatre then is your first love, all right? In the perfect world, you've got one more performance to do. Which play would you pick to do?
Oh,
it's a dreadful question.
God, it's a dreadful question.
All right, I'll give you two parts then.
Because, well, one of them I'd like comedy, you see. Yes. I do enormously enjoy playing comedy. To hear a whole theatre full of people laughing, getting laughs out of them is a marvellous shared experience.
Yes.
So, a comedy, well, let's say, and it's not entirely a comedy because it's very entertaining. It's very entertaining, but it's serious content, would be Tom Stoppard's Jumpers, which I played at the National for some 250 performances overall. As to a serious evening, I wouldn't mind having another crack at Lear.
You pick some difficult parts, don't you? I mean, you're on stage for everything but about 30 minutes in Lear, and for the entire performance in Jumpers.
Just about the entire performance, yes.
Lear is, of course, the ultimate test, isn't it, I suppose?
Well, it's the ultimate attempt, yes, the Everest, as they say, and very few people climb it.
And when you do a performance like Lear, how much does it take you over? I mean, how obsessive do you become with the character?
With the character? Well, personally, I don't. I think there's a great danger in becoming obsessed with a character outside the hours in which you're working on it. It really would take you over. I mean, it's been dreadful to think that you're going to really carry your dead daughter in your arms 8 times a week.
I simply wondered, I mean, do you become a different person to your family in the sense that you brood more, you're worried?
Yes, you do, I think. You do. Some plays have a very downing effect on you, it can really get you down. Just going into the theatre and playing whatever it is every night can make you very low. And or the opposite, when you come into the theatre and you know you're going to have a marvellous evening, and you know that everyone's there and longing to see this particular play, and they're all going to have a wonderful time and laugh. And that keeps you cheerful all day.
Another choice of record, please.
Well, there will be times, I'm sure, when one wants to become a bit contemplative and, if not in a sort of vague way, devotional. And I would like to hear some of Monteverdi's 1610 Vespers.
Sed formosa, formosa filie, Jerusalem. Ideo, dilectit me rex, et introduxit me cubiculum suum, et dixit mihi.
That was Negro Sum from Monteverdi's 1610 Vespers, the voice of Nigel Rodgers. So, Michael, you've been an actor now for 50 years. It sounds a silly question, I know, but I'd like to get your reaction. What is an actor?
He's a child, I think, who still enjoys dressing up, like we all did as children. We've just gone on doing it. And I think as you get older, you realize your own shortcomings, your own lack of personality, if you like, your own lack of making an impression. And so you do it through other people. You do it through King Lear.
Yes. What do you mean? You explain your deficiencies or you cover your deficiencies? What do you mean, both?
Yes, you cover your deficiencies. Oh, I find this impossible to explain. One has so little brain. That's another thing. Oneself. I've got nothing up there at all. So I fill it with other people's brains. I fill it with Shakespeare's brains or Sheridan's brains or, again, Tom Stoppard's brains.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what keeps me ticking.
And as you get older, does your acting change? Does it refine? Do you become a better actor, do you think?
Oh, yes, I think so, with experience. And another thing that you hopefully achieve, if you have been fairly successful, is confidence.
Yes.
And if you've got confidence and you just know, as it were, instinctively, that when you walk onto that stage, they're going to look at you and listen to you and enjoy you, that comes with age and experience.
The extraordinary thing about you too, you see, is that here you are, I mean, a great actor, acknowledged as such. You never had an acting lesson in your life, have you?
No, never. Never.
Why?
Well, one didn't sort of have to have them, you see, when 50 years ago you could creep in through a stage door and get a job, as I did, as a tea-boy and understudy and fifth assistant director and all, you know. But I don't think that I would have benefited from professional training. I don't think so. I think it's splendid for some people, but I think I would have got long-haired and tiresome, and I'd have got the wrong end of the stick.
Yes.
Whereas a good dose of 2 years of weekly rep really drove it into me.
So it's like the men from the boys.
Very great pleasure it was too.
Another choice of record, please.
Fairly recently, two entertaining chaps called Roger Hand and Rod Edwards set to music William Plumer's poems of The Butterfly Ball and The Grasshopper's Feast, which is a wonderful book and wonderful poems. And I won't inflict you with my voice, but Judi Dench and I appeared in this record, and I would like Judi Dench speaking the poem about Miss Money Spider.
I still have to make up my eyes. Unlike you, I've got 8. Alice, what is the time? How it flies. So do I. Through the air on a gossamer thread, I shall glide to the ball. As I float overhead, all will look up, and the dancers will pause to give me a deafening round of applause.
That was Miss Money Spider from Butterfly Ball, featuring Judi Dench. Reading about you, Sir Michael, it's quite obvious that the twin passions in your life are theatre and fishing. I'm not quite sure which you'd pick, if given the choice of doing one and not the other.
Depends on the time of year.
Does it?
Yes.
What is the fascination of fishing?
I can't tell you that either. It is basically, of course, the hunting instinct. You want to go out and bring back something to the cave. Say to your wife, "Aren't I clever? Here's a brace of trout for supper."
And you've also invented a fly, haven't you, which
Yes.
you've had named after you?
Yes, I did invent a fly some years ago, and Hardy's, the great tackle firm, asked if they could market it. I said, yes, I'm very proud. I'd rather have that than a knighthood. That was some time before I got one.
What was it called, the fly?
It was called Hordern's Pheasant Tail Nymph.
Oh, wonderful. Was it any good? Was it a good
Oh,
fly?
rather. That's why Hardy's, they got hold of it, and then one of the Hardy brothers had a marvellous day's fishing with it, and that's why he asked if they could put it in their catalogue.
And this is the place where you go and you relax and you forget about
Yes.
Sir Michael Hordern, actor. And all that.
Absolutely. Relax isn't quite the word in the sort of fishing that I do. In fact, most really keen fishermen don't relax terribly. It's a complete change of everything.
Yes.
But it's tense. You
Yes.
know. I'm absolutely whacked after a day's fishing.
So, Michael, also, sadly, earlier on this year, your wife, who you've known for 50 years, you met her in Rep, I believe, 50 years ago,
Yes.
died. I just wondered how much solace and comfort there was to be gained for you in that, obviously an awful time, through your work, because, I mean, you never stopped working.
Yes, indeed. Obviously, if all I could do was to sit there and twiddle my thumbs, I'd have gone mad, to start with, at least. And still, I mean, it comes back. So it is wonderful to have this work, and terribly lucky, you see, to be my age and still be in demand and work. I mean, if I was just a businessman who'd retired and lost my wife, I don't know what I would have done.
Yes. Yes, so are you, I mean, how do you imagine to cope with the loneliness itself? I mean, is it difficult?
Yes, it is. I sometimes feel terribly lonely. And I'm finding it a bit difficult to run the home. I realise now how hard wives work. My cooking is improving, and the ironing, but I can't do the sleeves of the shirts. I find them very difficult.
And what about then the future? I mean, are you going to just continue working?
Oh, yes. Oh, I hope so,
Well,
if they'll have me.
We all hope so, too. Final choice of record, please, Sir Michael.
Don Giovanni, Mozart. Must have, I was going to say lots of Mozart, but you can't afford to let me have more than one or two. La ci darem la mano, which I find very moving. It always makes me cry.
Now, Sir Michael, you're on your desert island now. You have to make the choice of one record from the 8. Imagine that 7 have been washed away. One left.
It would have to be the Ninth Symphony, the choral symphony.
And what about the book? Assume that you have the complete works of Shakespeare and the Bible already. What would it be?
It would be A History of the English-Speaking Peoples by Winston Churchill. I was abominably taught when I was at school, abominably taught history, and I have regretted it for the last 60 years, and this will be a chance to catch up and learn something of the history of my country.
And what about the luxury object, inanimate?
Well, is an elm tree inanimate?
For your purposes, sir, yes.
Yes.
I think so.
Well, I'd like an elm tree, because it will remind me of England when it was a green and pleasant land, and we had elm trees before the disease took it. And with any luck, out there on the desert island, those horrible little beetles won't be able to get it. And it will provide a lovely shade, and migrating birds will come and sit in it and sing to me. I think I'd be very happy to sit under that elm tree.
Sir Michael Hordern, thank you very much indeed.
You've been listening to a podcast from the Desert Island Discs archive. For more podcasts, please visit bbc.co.uk/Radio 4.